Welcome to the HuntFishTravel podcast, the first and longest running female hosted hunting podcast. When she's not arguing with boss hens or convincing gobblers that her box call is the sexiest, she's helping you navigate your trip of a lifetime. And now, here's your hostess, Carrie Zilka.
Welcome to the HuntFishTravel podcast. I am your hostess, Carrie Zilka. This week, we're talking to Bohning Archery's National Sales Manager, Greg Misner, about hunting mule deer in Montana, because that's fun. What's going on with Bohning Archery, and then we'll chat about some general archery topics. The show notes for this episode can be found on the website, huntfishtravel.net, under the show tab. You can also find HuntFishTravel on the Outdoor Podcast channel, a brand new episode from a different outdoor podcast every single day, all on one single RSS feed. Well, hey, Greg, thanks for coming on the show. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a long time in coming because, you know, we did that little mini episode at ATA, which was super fun. Mm-hmm. And yep. I know we had talked about doing an episode, and here it is 5 months later.
Yep, exactly. I know time seems to fly, especially in the archery industry, for sure.
No kidding. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about you, about Greg, and just kind of what's your story? What's your background?
Well, I grew up in northern Michigan, and grew up hunting the woods and in Michigan, and went to school in northern Michigan. Then after high school, I went to college, kind of in southern Michigan, and got a degree in education and played football in college, which was a really cool experience. Out of college, I got a teaching job. Actually, you know, like I said, got a teaching degree and whatnot, and got a teaching job. And about a year later, opportunity came up to get a teaching job in Montana. Moved out there. I was newly married, and we didn't have any kids yet, so we said, well, why not? And we moved to Northwest Montana, kind of sight unseen, and it was a really good move. Ended up being out there, I guess, about 11 years. And then within those 11 years, I started up an archery shop, and that grew pretty well. And then I got into competition archery real heavy, and that's kind of how the whole archery shop thing kind of started also. And just kind of developed from there. Did a lot of competition stuff. My wife shoots competitive as well. You know, we just got to travel quite a bit, and kind of got on the pro circuit and went from there. So I was able to shoot for Bohning for a while, and that's, I guess, kind of how I found out about the job. So yeah, it's just I guess my life's not any more exciting than anyone else's, but it's been kind of a fun ride so far. That's
really cool. I didn't know that about you guys shooting competitively, because it's funny because so on the Outdoor Podcast channel we have the Bow Dudes and the Bow Divas, and they work all the archery circuits and stuff, and they've been doing a really good job talking to some of these pro archers, and it makes, every time I listen to one of them episodes, it makes me want to go and look to see if the IBO or ASA is going to be in my area. I swear.
Yeah. Competition's really, really cool. You get to meet a lot of cool people, and it's one of my passions. And luckily, my wife is involved in it as well, so we get to do it together.
That's super cool.
You know, and you know, I always make the joke because Nikki's a pretty good shot. I always say I don't get too lippy with her because, you know, she can shoot pretty good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you know, we've been just really blessed with it. You know, we're able to be sponsored by some really good companies to help us out with equipment and help us out at the shoots and that sort of thing. And it's allowed us to travel with it some, and it's pretty cool to go to a world competition and shoot and, you know, be competitive with it. And it's just been a really, really neat experience for us, especially to do as a couple too. So it's been really cool.
Well, that's interesting. So the next question that I always ask is, like, just tell us one little tidbit that people don't know about you, something that the general public wouldn't know. And as a sales manager, I guess being a competitive shooter, people in the archery circuit would know that, but I think that's really interesting. But other than that,
you know, besides archery, one of my passions was teaching and coaching. And, you know, when I taught for a long time, I was also a head football coach for a long time of a high school out in Montana, and that was a really good experience. But I think one thing that probably most people don't know about me is I actually have a master's degree in special education.
Oh, wow.
So I was a special ed teacher in my years of teaching, and I just really enjoyed teaching kids that, you know, may have some learning challenges or just life challenges. And it was just really cool to work with those kids day in and day out, because every day was different. It was never boring. It was just a really, really good experience for me, and I really, really enjoyed it.
That is wonderful. So talk to us about Bohning. It's one of the most recognized names in the archery business and the bow hunting industry.
Yep.
How did the company get started? And why don't we just tell obviously I know, but let's tell anybody who's listening who's not familiar with the company what products that you make.
Okay. Well, one thing that's really cool about Bohning is we're actually in our 70th year this year. It's our 70th anniversary, which a lot of companies can't say that really in any industry. And where Bohning started in northern Michigan in 1946 is the same spot that we're going today. The original building of Bohning still stands, and the very first product Bohning ever created was called Ferrule-Tight. And originator of Bohning, his name was Roland Bohning. He was just shooting archery. Obviously, back then they were using, wood shafts and longbows and that sort of thing. And there wasn't really a very good product on the market back then to glue the tips onto the arrows. And so he said, I think I can do this better. And he was an engineer and a chemist and figured out a special formula that we still use today to create this hot melt glue is what we call it. And it just took off from there. Bohning has had some really innovative products, through the years. Obviously, probably the most popular and well-known now today is the Blazer vane. And we actually have had a lot of companies that have tried to copy it, but we kind of call it our secret recipe, and the fact that, we've got a good combo for the vane material that vane's made out of that really sets that vane apart from any other vane on the market. So, but, Bohning's a really cool company. We've got a beautiful setting where we are in northern Michigan, and it's just really cool to go to work every day and be surrounded by a bunch of people that love archery as much as I do. So it's a pretty cool deal.
Let's talk a little bit about your Montana mule deer hunt, because that's super, super fun. So I was going to say, tell us why you chose to go to Montana for your hunt, but was it because you were living there and coaching and teaching?
That had something to do with it.
Okay.
And, Montana, I guess when Nikki and I first moved out there, it was really, it's such a neat setting. And being younger like I was, I had never been west of Wisconsin. I mean, like Oshkosh, Wisconsin was the farthest west I had ever gone. So going to Montana was like going to a different world for me at that time in my life. And it was kind of an adventure and whatnot. But I remember calling the secretary. We got to Billings, Montana, and you look at it on the map and it doesn't look that big. And I called her from Billings, Montana, and said, well, we should be there in a couple hours. And granted, we were driving to northwest Montana, and Billings kind of in the southeast corner. And the secretary kind of laughed, and she said, no, you got more than a couple hours to get here. So that was another 600 miles we had to go. But, Montana was really neat in the fact that you could see so many different things in so many days. I mean, there were days where I hunted, I'd hunt whitetail on the river bottom, and then in the evening I'd hunt elk in the mountains. So, I mean, it was just a really cool state. But one thing that I really got into, and probably my favorite way of hunting, is spot and stalk mule deer hunting. And where we were, there was some of that, but I really found my love in kind of north central Montana. That's a lot of it's part of the Missouri River breaks. And so there's a lot of, they call them coulees out there, and a lot of deep cuts and whatnot where these animals can bed down in, and you'll be surprised on how hidden they can be. You can be right on top of them, you don't see them. I guess my hunt started, I had took the job with Bohning last spring, and so of course I was worried about, not being able to hunt. I already had my hunt scheduled and whatnot, to go in the fall, and then I took the job with Bohning. So I didn't have to apply as a non-resident because I was still a resident when I hunted in Montana, which was cool, and it saved me a little bit of money. But with my archery shop, I was really able to meet a lot of people, and I met a couple guys. I won't say his last name, but his first name was Corey, and he's a landowner out there, and he invited me to hunt his property. And I hunted a few farms out there, but I hunted Corey's quite a bit. And so when I went back out, I hunted that property again and was able to get this deer. But it was really, really, well, it was not good conditions because it had snowed, and then within less than 24 hours, it was 60 degrees. And if anyone's ever hunted out in that type of country, if it gets wet at all, it's solid clay. And if it gets wet, it's like walking in grease. And luckily, the time I shot him was in the morning. We were able to get him out before it got too hot. But hadn't been seeing a lot of deer, just been seeing a lot of little bucks. And finally, I saw him on the last morning. Was able to get a stalk on him and actually shot him at 53 yards. He was in bedded down looking away from me, and luckily I was able to get up to him, and I'd actually bumped a doe that I didn't see, and she was over to the left of him, and she stood up, and he kind of wondered what was going on, and luckily I was able to get the shot off. He hopped up after I hit him and ran over the top of the hill and expired on the other side. So it was a pretty cool deal. He's definitely not my biggest, but I was really happy to get him, and especially in that country, any animal with archery equipment's a good animal. So it was a really cool experience.
That does sound cool. That sounds so exciting. Yep.
Yeah. In Montana, it's just a really beautiful state to be in, and just the scenery itself is half the adventure of being out there. I mean, it's just really cool, and the terrain's really neat too. So it's not like sitting in a tree stand in Wisconsin or Michigan or in Illinois for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah. and it's one of the few states that I've never actually even visited. I would love to go out there. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, Montana's a really, really cool state. People out there are just awesome. And we've got some lifelong friends out there now that, we'll continue to be friends with. And yeah, it's just really, really cool out there.
That's awesome. That's super cool. How much were the non-resident tags, if you don't mind me asking?
Non-resident tags, they do what's called a combo license.
Okay.
And the combo would be like a deer and elk, and those are going to run, I believe, like $950. And then for just deer, it's about $600.
It's so expensive.
A little bit. Yeah, it is a little bit expensive to go out there, but the quality animals out there are really good. And like I said, if you have the ability to hunt, if you're hunting mule deer like I did, if you have the ability to hunt a ranch, I don't mean a ranch like a high fence type ranch. They're functioning farms and cattle ranches kind of thing.
Right.
The animals aren't as skittish. You've pretty good opportunity, but I actually killed my first few mule deer on public land. So Montana has a really cool program. It's called block land management, and what it is it's private land that landowners open up to the public, and you simply go in and sign in for the day. You can hunt it and then come back out, and then, you can go in and out, multiple days and whatnot. Some of them are more restricted than others, but for the most part, they're really, really open to public and whatnot to hunt. So that gives a lot of people a lot of hunting opportunity. You don't need to be on private land to get an opportunity at a good animal. I know my first mule deer that I shot on public land was about 150-inch mule deer, and he wasn't that deep into the wilderness, I guess you could say. But there's just a lot of opportunity, and it's just gorgeous out there. I miss it every day, and I wish I could be out there all the time. But what I'm doing right now is pretty cool too.
Yeah, I know. I used to help put on the Bowcast with the bird, in Utah.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Snowbird was just stunning. And I was like, I kind of wish I could live out there. But then I would come home and be like, no, I kind of like Wisconsin.
Yep. Yeah, we'll actually be, we just recently, Sean DeGray runs the Total Archery Challenge in Bohning. We just became a national sponsor for it. So we're actually going to be.
Oh, that's fantastic.
We're going to be out in the bird in July. And we're actually, Michigan now has a Bowcast at the bird, Bowcast
Total Archery Challenge.
Yeah. And it's going to be in Bohning Mountain here in Michigan. So it's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, Bohning, we just got picked up there as a national sponsor, and yeah, it's a pretty cool deal. I would encourage anyone to do it. If you've never done it or haven't heard of it, it's a really cool experience to do. So it'll certainly challenge your archery skills for sure.
Let's talk about that just a little bit. So obviously, having been out to the bird, I have not shot the event since Sean took it over. Is it still similar like we used to do out in Utah, or is it completely different in Michigan?
As far as the one in Michigan, it's run just like it is in Utah. I mean, obviously the terrain is probably not as aggressive as it is out in Salt Lake, but they do. They've got different type courses. They've got intermediate courses to really advanced courses. Got a pop-up course. It's just a really cool deal. I know they got the deal out in Salt Lake, the Mountain Mile, where those guys are running through the mountains and stop and got to shoot and all that stuff. And obviously fitness is important with hunting in that kind of terrain as it was in Montana. But I don't know if I'm not that athletic anymore to do that.
Right.
But no, it's pretty cool. We're real pumped to get it here in Michigan, and I know I talked to Sean last week about it, and he said there's already a really good sign up for it here in Bohning, so it's going to be pretty cool. We're going to end up having a booth there also, so it's pretty cool.
That is excellent. I know. I said this year I was going to go, but it's the same weekend as a different event that I go to.
Oh,
so maybe
okay.
next year. I know they were going to try it. I know he tried to put one on here in Wisconsin last year, and he just didn't get like hardly any reception. Like nobody signed up. So I was like, well, I don't know why.
Yeah, Sean said they've had a good number so far here, and yeah, they've had a couple events. I think they had one in Texas. They got one in Pennsylvania coming up, and yeah, it's Total Archery Challenge is really taking off throughout the country.
Very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So that segues in to my next question. So after the convention in January, the Archery Trade Association polled the exhibitors, and a lot of interesting info was gathered. I happened to read this article over the weekend, and I was like, wow, how timely. One of the talking to you, how timely. One of the biggest takeaways was that the exhibitors felt there was a definite growth in the right direction when it comes to archery. So what do you feel is Bohning's biggest opportunity to grow the business and the sport?
Well, one thing that we've really concentrated on, I guess a couple of things we really concentrate on. One is the youth programs throughout the country. I mean, like the NAS programs, the S3D archery is really taken off, and the 4-H programs and whatnot. And so we've really, last few years, we've come out with some products that are really geared toward youth shooters or new shooters to try to get them involved in archery, to make archery really welcoming to people. And archery in general has seen a really good growth from even the dealer level up to, school participation to major companies growing really well. So that's one thing that we focused on is the youth and new shooters. Another thing that we focused on is every year to compete with us, there's more and more competition. And one thing that we strive at Bohning is, to never react to what our competition is doing, but have them react to us. And we've done some really in-depth testing of it, like our nocks. We actually cycle test all our nocks at 380 feet a second out of a bow, and we shoot a really light arrow with it. We cycle test them to make sure that the nock material that we're using, is up to par and it won't put anyone in jeopardy, with nock breakage. It's one thing we get questions about. I almost get questions on them daily from customers is, my nock blew up from this. I was using this arrow, my nock blew up. And what do you guys have? Well, I have an answer now, is the fact that we cycle test these nocks, and the material that we make them out of is very high grade. And people don't think as a nock is very important in an arrow, but it really is. And so, we've really focused on developing, that product and that whole line, for one, to keep people safe, and two, to keep people's equipment consistent, because the more and more you shoot an arrow, the nock, the ears on the nock will actually start to separate. And so we've developed materials to where they don't do that. And that's why the reason we cycle test them, we'll put one nock through 1,000 shots at 380 feet a second. And, to make sure that nock is up to par, to keep people safe and to produce a product that isn't compromised in any way. So we're going to be revamping our new lines for 2017. We've got, we're working, I can't say anything yet, but we're working on a really cool new vein. Can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you if it's a honey vein or a target vein.
Way to dangle the carrot.
I know it. So it's
wrong.
Let me just say it's going to be real cool, and it's going to be one of those products where people are going to be reacting to us again. And we're working on that. We've really revamped our soft good line, like our quivers, our bow cases, and that sort of thing. We also have a product come out in our soft good line, and I can't tell you that either yet. But it's a soft good. It's a soft good product that there's no other companies doing it right now.
Okay.
And kind of I've done a lot of work with this new vein that we're going to be coming out with, and also with the soft good line. And being a bow hunter myself, I just simply sat back and said, what would I like to see that's better, or what's not addressed? And so that's kind of how some of these products have been developed. But it's cool to get to walk into a place every day and be surrounded by people that love to do what you're doing, it's pretty cool. So
that is cool.
Yeah,
you're living the dream that everybody wishes they could.
I hear it's
for
funny,
real.
I hear that a lot. But the funny thing is, I pay to go. If I want to hunt in Montana, I got to pay for it like everybody else.
Oh, I know. I love that.
It's funny, but a lot of people think because you're in the hunting industry that you get this for free and that for free, and I'm like everybody else. I pay for my own arrows and I pay for my stuff just like everybody else does. So
you betcha.
But it is, it is pretty cool to be able to call some of these industry people up who are big names and just talk to them, as you and I are talking. So that part I feel really blessed about, and it's pretty humbling every day to be able to talk to those people.
Yeah. What do you think is the number one hindrance for archery growth? Do you think? What do us as archers or even bow hunters, what do you think is our biggest obstacle? Well,
I think a lot of times it's sometimes us, if that makes sense. There's a lot.
Sense.
There's a lot of very, very good people in the hunting industry that help grow, hunting and bow hunting. And a lot of things I think people don't realize that are non-hunters is that hunters are probably the biggest conservationists out there. I mean, we want to have the animals around. We want to keep habitat. We all want to keep that stuff. So hunters are actually for hunting. They're not trying to kill everything in sight like a lot of people think hunters want to do. But as far as the biggest hindrance, I think, we sometimes can be kind of loudmouth, or we got to kind of watch what a lot of us say, because it offends a lot of different people that aren't into hunting, and I think that can hurt us. But from a business standpoint, I think that obviously a down economy never helps, and that's I think why some of these companies are having down year or last couple of years, but we are starting to see a growth again in archery. I know for us personally, our dealer sales are up really, really well this year in 2017. So I mean that's a positive. And I've talked to other people in the industry that they're having a better 2016 as they were in 15. So, but I think that hindrance, it's kind of regional. A lot of different parts of the country are hurting in different ways or doing better in different ways. So. It really just depends on kind of the area, I think. But as far as the overall industry, I do see it as having, so far this year, we're having a pretty good year. But, I know we are at Bohning, so that's a positive thing.
I've heard that from a couple of people, that it's a bit more on the uptick. So that's a great thing to hear.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? So the archery industry as a whole, is there anything that's really tripping your trigger lately? Anything coming up in the industry itself that you're excited about? Well,
one thing for me that I find really cool is how many smart people there are in the hunting industry. There's I look at the bows nowadays. I mean, even when I started my archery shop, years ago, and then, growing up bowing, my first bow was a 45-inch Hoyt Pro Vantage, little tiny wheels on it, and I was shooting 23-13 aluminum arrows with feathers and a glue-on knock. And I remember getting that thing chronoed at 187 feet a second, thinking, man, I'm flying.
Yeah.
And now bows are shooting so fast, and the efficiencies they're able to get, to get out of bows is just phenomenal to me. But I think for me, the neatest thing going on and the most exciting thing about archery now is all the involvement from women and the involvement from kids. And I really think that that's really, really, really cool, because it's not just a sport for guys anymore.
Yeah.
And I just think that is going to help us grow the industry. It's going to help us grow the sport. It's going to help hunting. I mean, I just see it as a really, really cool thing. But the way that these youth programs are growing, I really think that's a big, big help for it. It gets kids exposed to it, and a lot of kids would never be exposed to archery unless they had it within their school or at their church or, whatever. But it's just really, really, really cool to see the women and the youth involved. So
Agreed. So we talked about the Total Archery Challenge, which is super cool. But do you have any other exciting events or hunts coming up?
Oh yeah. Well, business wise, I'm actually heading to West Virginia to the first leg of the National IBO Triple Crown.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool. Get to see the all the people we get to see every year. We get a lot of people that look for us. They come by make sure they come by the booth to say hi and that sort of thing. It's just a really, really cool experience. I love going to the national shoots, and it's pretty cool. I get to compete when I'm there too, so that's a really neat opportunity for me to get out and meet some archers that maybe I haven't met before. And and I think having us at Bohning out shooting too, it kind of shows, hey, we do kind of know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
But it's cool. Yep. And we're not just a bunch of salesmen or people making products that we have no idea what it is. I mean, it's cool that way. But we're kind of got some things to get lined up this year. We're going to some national ASAs. Going to IBOs stuff. Of course, we got Total Archery Challenge this summer in June and July. And one cool thing about my job is I get to travel those, so that's pretty neat for me to do. And I really, really enjoy that. As far as hunts go for me, unfortunately, I'm not going to Montana this year. So
man.
I know it. I'm disappointed. First time in a long time I'm not going to be able to mule deer hunt. But I am scheduled to go to actually Virginia of all places to whitetail hunt. So I've never been down south to hunt at all, and got invited down there by one of our pro staffers to come hunt a farm down there. So that'll be pretty cool. And then I think I'm going to be going to a hunt in Ohio with one of our staffers also. So never hunted Ohio, never hunted Virginia. So
excellent.
So I'm looking forward to it.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us where we can find out more about you and about Bohning Archery?
Okay. We've got our cool website. It's bohning.com. We've got a Facebook page. Ashley, our marketing director, does a good job with that, keeping that up to date. And I'm not a very techie person, so thank God she's around. But people can see us on the website, Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. So, and if anyone ever has any questions, technical questions, they can give me a call at Bohning, and I can try to help them out best I can. So,
all right. Well, thank you again for coming on the show, and I cannot wait to talk to you again. Maybe after the Total Archery Challenge hits Michigan, we'll have you on to chat about it again.
Yeah, sounds great, Karen. Really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And that'll do it. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to support the Hunt Fish Travel podcast, head on over to patreon.com/Carrie Zylka, CarrieZylka, where you can chip in $1 or $2. Podcasting isn't free, and your support helps keep the lights on. Don't forget to find the show on iTunes. Just search for Hunt Fish Travel, all one word. Hit the subscribe button. You can also follow me on social media. Just go to huntfishtravel.net and click on the social media icon of your choice. Thank you for listening.